Have you ever wondered how to get rich quick in real estate? Well, follow me because right now I'm going to tell you how I bought a house off an auction block at a mortgage foreclosure that came with an IRS lien. And how did I clear that? What happened? And if you're joining along after the first part, this is part two, slot two. So I told you that I did buy a house off of the county courthouse steps. This is a mortgage foreclosure. A deed of trust was being foreclosed on. You can find that called different things in different states. But basically, you didn't pay your loan against your home and you lost it. So, the sale took place on the county courthouse steps, where most I've never seen. I've seen them online, but all others I've always seen held at the county courthouse, usually outside, but sometimes maybe inside in the foyer. So make sure that you do arrive early. You want to arrive early. You want to, usually the person running the sale kind of has kept an eye on everybody there. Go up, say, hey, I'm going to attend your sale today. And maybe it's really cold outside. He'll say, hey, if you want to wait in your truck, I'll kind of signal to you when I'm ready. I mean, it could be, if the wind's blowing and it's -10, you're going to stand out there in -10 and have a sale. So hope it's -10 that no one shows up. You can also talk to other investors there. What are you prepared to bid that day? No need to bid it up. That's a whole nother, that's a whole nother game when we talk about, strategies. Anyway, okay, I was my ex-husband, he attended the sale, and we were buying a house that was coming up that had the IRS lien on it. Okay, so what happened though is we bought it and we negotiated with the IRS. It was like a $10,000 lien, and I think we negotiated for $5,000. However, that was a weird sale that day. The person that was high bid on it, they had 1 hour to be back at the steps with the cashier's check for the remaining balance. That's the way it was back then. Things are a little bit different now, and but yeah, you usually have to show back up within a certain amount of time if it's not online and you're sending it somewhere online. Okay, so he noticed that the person that was being foreclosed on, I don't remember how he knew who they were, was sitting there with a man who was bidding on it. And so he did wait for that 1 hour for that person to come back with the money. And there was another guy that was going to wait too, but decided not to. So over an hour passed. The gentleman did not come back up with the money, and that went back up for sale again. And this time we got it for minimum bid. Wow, right? How cool is that? I mean, it was still a pretty big chunk of change, right? And so then we got served with a notice from a lawyer's office that was contesting that sale, that they were trying to show that they were not late. And so we ended up setting a subpoena to the bank to show what time that cashier's check had been produced, and it was not produced well into the afternoon, and therefore they did not have any right to that, and they lost that case. And that took like a couple months, it seemed, to figure out. But anyway, in the meantime, we ended up, I have a dog kind of panting loud, so I was being quiet. I think they're just in deep sleep. I don't think they're distraught. Okay, I got 4 dogs in the house. not protectors. 4 dogs and 2 guns. I highly recommend it. Don't piss me off. Okay, so we ended up negotiating with the IRS, and however, we said to them, it's going to be a matter of time before we pay you because this lawsuit had sprung up, and we set the money aside into a specific account that we showed them proof of, and they were fine with that. Once the property was put into our name, we paid them, they released the lien. So, and all we did was turn around and flip it. We only did work that would have been required to make it pass an inspection, and there was a little bit of some plumbing issues that had to be dealt with, and that was a really interesting little thing to learn. So that was way early in the game before I ever started kicking it in the tax foreclosure game like I do. But what else have I done? Oh, my friend asked me, how do you find these sales in Canada? And so again, go to, who do you pay your taxes to? What municipality is that? And I believe like it's your townships up in Canada that would hold these sales. For instance, you live in the British Columbia, which would be the equivalent of Washington State, and I used to live in Whatcom County, which would be the equivalent of the Langley Township. And yep, your newspapers are going to have it up there as well. You could find that online. I have found most of the newspapers online. Yeah, that even though the newspaper, you cannot read the content like the headlines online, the public notices will be open, and they do have to, I mean, they're being paid to show those, so those are open. Those are public notifications, and that's what's required by court. So you don't have to pay. I've never seen a newspaper yet pay to see the public notices. You might have to pay to read the articles though. Okay, what else are we going to talk about? I did make a few notes here because it's just overwhelming what's in my head. We talked about making sure you leave plenty of time to get to the tax sale. You know, my first one I showed up at, and I was late, and so I just observed. But it was a 3-day sale, and it was interesting to watch too. Go watch your local tax sale. That's for taking a sick day from work, man. You want to go watch. You want to watch. You want to see what that's about. If it's online, watch what happens online. If it's live, that's even better. They're exciting. Most places you have the right to pay the taxes, you know, almost up to the sale. The government does not want you to lose your property. That's just not the truth. I've known many treasurers over my life. Treasurer's the one that puts on the tax sales, except in Arizona. We'll talk about that too, because that's a different, Arizona's weird. And we're going to talk about lien sales as well. But good friend of mine was a treasurer, bless her heart. And so I really got to hear a lot of her intake on her personal feelings about who she was the treasurer for. You know, that you get elected, people trust you. And she took that seriously. if there's any chance that you could work out some kind of payment plan, they're going to put you on a payment plan. It's only when they don't hear from you and they're forced to really put your home up for sale that happens. So you might have gone and searched everything on that sale list, and then now it's the day of the sale. And always before the sale starts, it says, we're going to read the list of what has been pulled off of the sale list. So there's the original sale list, and say there was 100 properties on there, and they're going to say, okay, item number 3, item number 10, item number 20, and maybe almost the entire sale gets pulled off. I've seen that happen too. So you might have spent all this time researching all those properties. You went and drove to all of them, and they got redeemed. They did not go up for sale. And if that don't, right? Oh, it's here, right here. Get your heart right. Oh, rocking in my chair. Somebody that does this, you know, the professional, what do you call those? The professional influencers. Maybe they could tell me what they use to put their camera up so it doesn't fall over. Good Lord, I'm having a hard time. Okay, so what's the difference between a tax deed and a tax lien sale? Okay, Arizona, they're a bunch of freaking weirdos. And so Arizona has two different things that they do. Okay, I kind of tend to refer to Washington State because that's where I was. But I do live in Arizona, so I see our laws, and I work a lot over in New Mexico. But Arizona and New Mexico are totally different than any other place I work. So pretty much Washington, Oregon, Nevada, California, Kansas, they all kind of have the same structure of tax laws going on. So you don't pay your taxes after, you get a notice your taxes are due and you didn't pay it. Okay, so now you end up on a list of people that didn't pay their taxes, and that is published, in the paper. Okay. So in Arizona, that goes up for sale. That tax lien sale, different than a tax deed sale. A lien, there's now a lien against my property. I did not pay my taxes one year. I owed like $1,500. I didn't pay it. It was during my divorce. I was paying enough out in other places anyway. So, people started driving by my house down below. I thought, what the heck's people down below? I mean, it's an easement. I mean, what are people driving on that easement for? And that's because the tax lien sale was going on. And they wanted to see what they were investing in. What were they buying that day? Basically, they paid my taxes for me. There's a lot of investors that play the tax lien game. What's the tax lien game? Well, I'm going to pay your taxes for you, and that's the tax certificate. Say that when you pay your taxes, me as the property owner, say I owe Joe Smith, he bought my lien that day. I now owe the county, I still owe them $1,500, but on top of it, I owe Joe Smith 18%. a year. So Joe is playing a totally different game than I play. Joe is playing an interest game. There's a lot of older men that I say, man, I've never met a woman. I'm sure there are. Don't mean to say that because, let's hear it for the girls. Okay. So what happens though is they just simply want a good rate of return on their investments. So say you have $100,000 and you could go to the bank and you could invest it in a certificate of deposit and you could get, 4, 5, 7,000 or 4, 5, 7% return on your money. So, if you had $100,000 and you got 7%, you're going to get $7,000. If you go invest in a certificate on a tax lien sale, say that tax lien sale started at 18%. It's a bid. And say nobody bid against you. You just bought it. I owe you 18%. I don't get to control what I pay you. State law does. However, say that, Susie Q says, I'm willing to bid 17%. Well, maybe he's willing to take 16. Well, she's willing to take 12. Ooh, okay. You're still getting, it's a sure thing. The stock market isn't a sure thing. When your stockbroker calls you and says, hey, yeah, you did really good, man. We're back up to 5% for the overall year. And you've been on a roller coaster. Wow, 5% is pretty good. Yeah, 20% is great. Is it a sure thing? No. So a lot of people like to play the certificates game. I don't. Because I like playing Monopoly. I'm playing the biggest game of Monopoly ever. That's who should really sponsor me. It's not Keurig, it's Monopoly. So I can set up my store. I could sell Monopoly games. Oh my God. Come on by. Let me kick your ass in a real game of Monopoly. I love that. So at some tax lien sales, off track again, there we go. At some tax lien sales, some people have no idea what they're doing. And what if they bid it down to 0? Okay, so now you just paid my taxes and you're not going to get any interest on that certificate if I pay that off. And do you really think that I was going to let this home go up for $1,500 worth of taxes? No, that doesn't really happen. If it did happen, I'd probably be playing that game more. Yeah, land does happen too. So first of all, the person that bid it to 0 probably didn't know that they were, a lot of times they don't even know what the sale was about. They're at the wrong sale. And you might lose your principal. You're not going to lose your principal. All you're going to get is your principal back. I'm the money that you paid, my taxes, that's all you're going to get back. Because you bid it down. So know what kind of sale you're going to. In Washington, Nevada, when you don't pay your taxes, we, the people of the county, carry that burden for you. And you owe the county the taxes. The treasurer is in charge. Yeah, you owe the treasurer, but really you owe we, the people. They carry the burden of that tax for you. When it goes up for sale, they paid your taxes and somebody else now owns it. So what happens is after the sale, you are going to get a deed in the mail. And I'll post a few copies of deeds and the comments. Basically, it's the deed language that surrounds it is based upon the state laws. And so you step into whatever position that person was in based upon the laws. So if you're in New Mexico, you step into their shoes. If there is a lien against it, you now have a lien against it. There are laws surrounding the liens, though. Lots of laws surrounding liens, and that is really technical. That's like, when did the lien arise? How long can they go back? And especially like on landowners associations, they just can't go back and charge the liens for 20 years, although they'd like to tell you that they can, but that's not what the laws say. But you know, if you have a choice of not buying something and you don't know the lien laws, try to find something without liens to begin with. However, don't be afraid to buy a lien. You know, if it's say that, because I do buy a lot of, I don't want to discourage you from that, right? I'm not trying to mislead you, but say that you find a landowners association has a lien, and their dues are about $100 a year, $200 a year. Let's go with $200 a year. And they put a lien on it. Say that lien was 3 years old. And 3 years ago, they put a lien on it for $1,000. Okay. So then you think to yourself, okay, dues are $200 a year. So if there's a lien from 3 years ago, I'm certainly going to owe another 2 years what's going on, plus another current year. So I'm going to owe at least another $600, plus any other fees that might be charged to that, which are usually minimal, interest and penalties. Usually landowners do have some reasonable fees, but so say that you had $1,000 lien and that was covering 3 years, figure another $1,000. So you better figure that into the cost of your property. So if you went to the tax sale and say you bought it for $2,000, and by the way, my goal, if I bought it for $1,000, my goal is to sell it for $2,000. And that's just kind of a rule of thumb that, by the time I pay for advertising, taxes that might occur as I hold that property, my employees, my insurance, all that stuff, that's kind of a rule of thumb as to what's a decent income for me to live off of. Now, obviously, if I buy a house for $2,500 and I'm not going to sell it for $5,000. So some people will use the price that you buy it for to try to manipulate you into the selling. And it doesn't matter what I bought it for. You know what I really bought it for? If I bought it for $2,500, I bought it for brains. And you can't put a price on your brain. So, I'm keep bumping into my little stand here. Okay, so you're going to get a deed in the mail. The language of that deed will tell you what liens or encumbrances are against it. Okay, so say that fix that a bit. Okay, so come on. Say that in New Mexico, you have the right to pay those taxes up until the day of the sale. And this happened to me early on. So I've another learning situation that somebody had sent their taxes in and postmarked it before the day of the sale. So now the treasurer's office gets a payment and they see that that's already been foreclosed on. and now that sale gets reversed, and that's called rescinding a sale. So if a sale gets rescinded, you'll usually find out right away. I have had sales rescinded. I think I've only ever had 3 or 4 sales rescinded, though. The first one was the worst. Usually the sale gets rescinded and you don't even have your deed yet. So you've paid for the property, but you're going to get a letter, an email that says, hey, got to take that property back from you. So they will send you a deed, a form if they haven't deeded it to you yet, and you got to fill out their paperwork with your information. They will send you your money back, and that's called rescinding a sale. So you never even got the property in that case. And that just did happen to me about a year ago. It was a interesting property. I was so excited I won that property. It was a beautiful place up in the middle of northern Nevada, and it got rescinded because somebody can contest and say, hey, I paid my taxes, or you did not properly get notified. If they could prove that they made an address change and you did not notify them, then that's a reason that a sale could be rescinded, or you did pay your taxes. Sales are very, very hard to get rescinded or prove. I mean, for usually a sale to be overturned, you got to prove that your taxes were paid, you were away at war, or you were incompetent in a court of law, or you were not properly notified. And like I said, I've only ever seen 3 out of 1,000. So, okay. So if you're going to get rescinded, somebody say they pay their taxes, and okay, so you get a form, you get your money back. Say that in that first time it ever happened to me, I had already gotten my deed from the county tax sale, and I had recorded that. I had sold it. And then I get this letter that says, well, we're really sorry, but that property that you got 3 months ago got rescinded. And apparently there had been a breakdown in the computer system at the treasurer's office. And this is 25 years ago, right? And computers were, still in the goldenrod colors back then. And they weren't able to turn over the documents to the state. So, between the county, somebody had made a payment and they didn't know it, and they couldn't turn the records over. So when the records did get turned over, oh, look, one did pay. And so now in the mail, I received a deed from me to give back to the state. Grantor, grantee. How do you keep grantor and grantee in your mind? Okay. Grantee, who received it. Grantor, Grantor, who gave it to you. I still have to do that today. So in that case, I was the grantor giving it back to the state, who was the grantee. They were receiving it. When you fill out a deed, there's always a grantor and a grantee. Make sure you know which one you are, because when you buy, you're going to be receiving it. You're going to be the grantee. When you turn around and sell it, you're going to be the grantor. So start reading deeds. Oh, I've seen some really cool deeds over my life. A language of a deed often says, and anything that might be related to it. And that means that everything that goes back in the chain of title, the easements, water, mineral rights that might have been with it, all that, whatever that language is, if it was with it, it's yours. So even though it's not stated on your deed. The biggest common issue is easements. And land years ago, when it was originally subdivided, it said things like, we grant you the northwest quarter of the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter. Okay, I just described a 10-acre piece of property, and it would say something like, and an easement for ingress and egress surrounding the property. That means ingress and egress. So that between you and the neighbor, there would be like a 30-foot strip of land that you would have the right to put your road down to get in and out of ingress and egress, utilities, roads, all that stuff. So that would have usually been granted by the land companies or who originally subdivided up this property. However, that's not of record at the assessor's office. That's recorded at the clerk's office, recorder's office, also the clerk's office. So if the assessor's office knew about it, they would probably note that somewhere in their records. But that level of knowledge was not around back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s when they were subdividing land. So you could walk into the assessor's office and they might tell you there's no easement to that property. Well, how do they know? Did they go back to the very first deed and look? No. So, here's an interesting example getting into, because you get everything that surrounds it on that property in that deed. That's what the language of it says. So I bought a piece of land, really valuable piece of land that had a lien against it. And there was a road to it. My neighbors had the same road, and they graveled it. And it had a lien against it as well. Say that I paid $2,500 for the property. The lien was probably $10,000 to get that lien cleared. It was a crappy lawyer. Good Lord. Anyway, usually liens don't take $10,000 to clear. That's for damn sure. So I knew that in New Mexico, their assessor, before there was the assessor's database, which their back end often has information that they can read that you can't. But there's often parts of it that if you really dig in deep into the assessor's database, that you can get in and see how big is that mobile home, when was the well put in, when was the septic put in. Those are whole different screens than the assessed values. So you can get in pretty deep on a lot of them and really find out what information they have. And if you don't find what you're looking for, call them. They've got more information that's public records. It's not turned on for us to see. So I went to the assessor's office and I said, hey, can you pull the old property card for this? And what's a property card? Well, back before computers, we had property cards. And those property cards often have weird stuff. Like, I knew that I might find a book and page for when it was originally subdivided. Why would that be important to know when the book and page refers to the recorded date? So say that I recorded something on October 31st, 2025. I went to a courthouse and recorded it. That recording number usually refers to, it'll say like 20, 25, 10, 31 to get the date. And then it'll have a number like this is the 20,001 document to be recorded. Okay, so I have a specific number that gets, these days, they just print off a little label and it's stuck right on your deed. That is your recorded deed. That by law made it yours. Recording that's your recording label. If I want to go search from where it was originally subdivided, I would have to know, who did I buy it from? Or the date of the sale. Well, if you buy something at a tax sale, you can find out who used to own it. It's not the easiest thing. And then you would have to go find out, you'd have to go start searching for their name. And what if there's several by that name? Or what if it's so old, it's not indexed? So now you're in a room full of recorded that are paper records where it's walls and walls of books that go back and say Charlotte Pruitt, Block 3, Lot 4, October 31st, 2025. And it'll tell you that book and page. I have spent hours in courthouses looking for names. Oh, look, there's that name. Oh, look, it's 1976. There is the deed. Oh, look, I found it. Because I've maybe traced back 5 different people that owned it to get to the original subdivider. And on that deed was the easement. You can also pay a title company to do that. And it is not cheap. But I often say that I do follow a few groups, real estate groups. And every once in a while when I see that person say, oh, I bought a property and it doesn't have a easement to it. Do you know that for sure? Did you go back to the very beginning? Because most land does have easements. Very seldom is something really landlocked. Another really good example of an old easement is I've bought some properties that go back to when I've searched them. Just 2 deeds between me and the U.S. president. Oh, that's really cool. Huh. Just that, it's been so long, since you see those original deeds come from our government, that somebody struck it out rich, struck out west to get rich, right? And to get rich in your soul, because it was hard, but like those ones would reference, you get everything that comes with it. And then for those, it says, so, if there was a road to it at that point, you got that road. Well, how do you know if there was a road to it at that point? We're talking 100 and something years ago, right? And so, this is interesting. I found out through a county once, I was working on one that is these situations, and a lady at the county says to me, our records only go back to 30s or 20s, to the point when the county had formed. And so you need to go back to the BLM GLO records, GLO, and I'd never heard of that before. The BLM GLOW records, the Bureau of Land Management, they manage all the land that's, our government, it's owned by we the people. So they also manage all of our prior records to the counties, forming survey maps, things like that. So at one point, the federal government did send surveyors across the United States to survey it. And land in most areas is surveyed, subdivided every square mile. You've got a federal survey marker in the four corners of the square mile. Some are a half mile, and some also have the center point. And you got to learn how to read those markers to know where you're at. But land is subdivided into square miles based on what's called township, range, and section. And so when you go back and you want to research the GLOW records, you actually go back and you research by township, range, and section. And so I did do that, and I found the old survey maps that were of record to this property when it got given by the government. And so at that point, somebody doesn't get to lock the gate that's a mile down the road. And so don't give up hope ever. No, maybe before you buy it, but real estate in general, don't give up hope that you don't know what's on that title until you go back and you look at the very beginning. I mean, okay, you're not going to be able to go to a county courthouse and sit down and do what I just did. It took me years to understand how to do that. But you could pay a title company, and that could be well worth it. But often the person that you're talking to at the county, or, the person you're talking to at the desk, they will have no clue what you're talking about, because your level of knowledge is well beyond what they've ever even seen done. They're going to tell you that, no, look at my card right here. You have no easement. I had a man, literally, the easement I'm talking about, that little sat and argued with me that every easement in their county had been found and put on their website. I liked going back in there and adding mine to it. Okay. So we talked a little bit a difference about your tax lien versus your tax deed. Tax deed is kind of more or less a quitclaim deed based upon the state laws. Quitclaim deed, special warranty deed, statute warranty deed, you name it, there's all kinds of deeds out there. And the language in that deed is what dictates what you're warranting to somebody. Depending where I purchased the property, what type of arena was it in? Was it a tax foreclosure sale? How long has it been since the tax foreclosure sale? Did I purchase it outside of the tax arena? Dictate what kind of deed I am going to use to resell it on. So, when would I use a quitclaim deed? When I'm getting a divorce, or maybe a family member. But basically, the language of a quitclaim deeds, basically, I believe it to say that if I have any interest in this property, it's yours. And you get your signature notarized. And that's common in a divorce, that you just give each other quitclaim deeds, because you know what you're getting. You don't have to warrant it you don't have to warrant anything. You're just giving it to them. Quit claim. Some people think it's a quick claim, like I hope my house gets quickly cleaned, but it's quit. I quit having any interest in it. A quit claim deed. The next level up that I use is called a special warranty deed. It warrants that I have not put any liens or encumbrances against it. However, it is based upon the tax laws that surrounded the deed that I bought it on. And I already know if I get rescinded, if something goes wrong, I owe you your money back. If I'm wrong, I owe you your money back. I can't warrant against until that period of time is expired. Like you buy a tax sale property. I have bought, let's just say 15,000 because I don't really know how many it is. But say out of 15,000, I said 4 got rescinded. So I already know that if I get rescinded, I owe you your money back. I'm going to get my money back. Okay, so you got to think about that in the meantime, you know, what is your exposure? I would not be playing this game if I was having to give money back a lot. And we're not talking a lot of money. You know, we're not tax foreclosures are a cheap investment. But say I was selling a house, you're going to get a full warranty deed, a statutory warranty deed based upon the state statutes of the state that my deed's made in, or that the property's in, whatever I'm deciding to use, or who's ever in the transaction with you. A title company is going to use a full warranty deed, you would call that. And it's going to warrant against any liens or encumbrances. But you know what? You read the language in, like you go to the title company to get insurance, they warrant against, they insure against none of that. They'll insure no liens or encumbrances, but you read the language of that and boy, they sure exclude a lot of stuff. Make sure you know what's in there. Don't learn to read your title searches. Interesting what is in a title search, because they will go back and they will search everything that's recorded at the county level. Title companies every day they get the updates of what's recorded at the clerk's office, the recorder's office. So that's why you can pay a title company to search the records. Most counties within the last 20 years, not all though are online, but most have gone back through those old records and microfilmed them, or not microfilmed them, photographed them. So now those are online, and the title companies will have back to the beginning of the county records. Those are really hard records to search, though. It's volumes and volumes and volumes of books. And okay, so where were we in this? When you're, so know what type of deed you're receiving, know what type of deed you're giving. You can go to your local office supply store. They carry, often they'll have things like quitclaim deeds, warranty deeds, that are based on the laws that are in the state that you're standing in. That's where you'd find something like notary statements, things like that. So an Office Depot, something like that, has a legal form section. You can also find them online. Type your own. Go look at recorded deeds at the courthouse online. What do deeds look like? And you're just copying things, but you better know what you're copying. My deeds were made up by my attorney. And when somebody wants to do business with me and they want to use their deed, no, I only use my deed. Or a title company. They can close it if you want. But I don't let other people do my paperwork. I'm really picky about that. Paperwork, that's later on down the line, because paperwork can be overwhelming. So tax sales, tax liens, Call your county. What county do you live in? What surrounding counties? That's where you're going to start. You want to start in your own backyard, if possible, because you're not going to have any travel expenses. You're going to be able to go look at the property after work or on the weekends. And we used to take days off of work, plan days off of work for the tax sale. So most sales are online. You still got to take a day off of work if you're going to do it. And the other thing that I'm just going to say is you're never going to be a real estate investor until you try. And that can be really, really nervous to hold your card up and bid. And there's enough land for all of us. You got to try. And what's the worst that could happen? Is you own a piece of land that, you'll eventually sell it. I've never met somebody yet who wanted to be a real estate investor who bought a piece of land that did not do something that they were happy with in the end. They might have held it for a while, not knowing what to do with it. It's an egg in a basket, and it's a place to start. You can do it. So, find out when your tax sale is. Find the county's assessor's website. Find the treasurer's website. Find their GIS system. If you do not own a piece of property, find a piece of property that you would like to research. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe you have a family member that owns a piece of property, or a friend, and say, hey, would you mind if I had your assessor's parcel number? You don't even, or just go research their name, find their assessor's parcel number, go look up your assessor's parcel number. Okay. Go look up the name. And what do you see online? What do they have? You've got the assessor. Who is the assessor? They are in charge of assessing the values, keeping track of the names that own it. What's the value of it and who owns it? Because they have to notify you of that value. You have an opportunity, once they send you your value, to dispute that value. So the assessor, they keep track of who owns it, what's it's worth. One thing to note, like in Arizona, say that a piece of property in Arizona is worth $10,000. You'll see it say $10,000. But then you'll also see something that says taxable value, $3,333. Well, why is that? Well, because they only tax you on a third of the assessed value. So I'm just going to say what flashes in my brain is, a person calls me and says, well, it's not, it's only worth $3,333. And I go look it up and I thought, oh, you missed that. It's really worth $10,000. But sure, I'll pay you that assessed value. Right? All I'm paying you is the tax assessed value, not the full assessed value. So make sure you're reading the right assessed value when you're researching, because that's a big difference. The treasurer is responsible for keeping track of the payments. So the assessor says, hey, it's worth $10,000. And the treasurer then says, okay, well, based upon the tax rates within our county, which are set by whoever's in charge of the county taxes that you vote on, for property taxes, for like schools, roads, hospitals. Okay, so they say based upon $10,000, you owe $100 a year, and they send you out a notice for that. So first you get your assessor's notice in the mail, and then you get your treasurer's notice in the mail. You get your tax bill, and you have so long to pay the treasurer. And then there's the recorder's office. The recorder is responsible for keeping track of all documents. They don't tell you whether or right you're wrong, whether or not you're right or wrong. If I owned block 5, lot 4, and I put on my deed block 4, lot 20, they don't stop me from recording it. It's not up to the recorder's office to tell you if the document is legally correct or not. They look at it, make sure that it's proper, in that you have to usually have like 1 inch on either side of a clear margin, so when they photocopy it, everything is within the margins. Tell you how much you own, make sure it's, they'll look for it's notarized. Okay, no, it's not notarized, you need to go get it notarized. They would tell you that, I guess. So you recorded something and say, that's what they're in charge of. That's it. Those records get turned over to the assessor. So now the assessor gets the deed from Charlotte Pruitt to Thurston Worston, my dog. Okay, so say that I give a deed to Thurston. And so the assessor gets a copy. Now they've got that, a copy or the real thing, right? Some don't send anything. Usually it's a copy though, but you never know how they work. Came a long way in 20 years. But okay, so they're looking at the records and they say that, okay, Charlotte Pruitt, block 5, lot 20. Well, Charlotte Pruitt doesn't own block 5, lot 20. She owns block 5, lot 4. Ooh, I just clouded the title for lot 20. I didn't own it. I clouded their title. Once upon a time, an investor, I will not say names, I called him to tell him that, hey, the deed that went on had a wrong legal description on it. Don't worry about it. I was new. I didn't worry about it. Well, he should have worried about it. He should have corrected it. He should have corrected the deed to me, because I bought something from him. Everything that he gave me was correct, but that one extra lot that was wrong, he clouded that. What he should have done is re-recorded that deed and made a note that said this is to re-record the deed to correct deed number, and referred back to that other deed so that it would have corrected it. But instead he said, just don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, don't worry if you cloud somebody else's. Some title companies might look at that and just go, yeah, okay, well, mistake. That they had no right to it anyway. Don't worry about it. But some title companies might not like that. So, okay, so then that assessor's got that deed on there, and he says, hey, no, Charlotte doesn't own that lot. And in this case, I will get that kicked back to me that said, hey, you don't own that deed, and you tried to send it to somebody. You don't own that. And that gets kicked back to me. I see that. So then we do a correction deed. Let your customer know you screwed up. Don't let them find out from someone else when you screw up. You call them, you say, hey, I made a mistake. Because humans make mistakes. We certainly do. Oh, I snorted again. I've made a lot of them. Anyway, so, you would just want to re-record that deed. And somewhere in the body of that, you write, this is to re-record a correct, this is to correct a deed dated, re-record deed, correct dated. Okay. So those are your three real basic departments: the assessor, the treasurer, and the recorder. From there, you've also got the GIS department, and that's your online information system where we now have taken the county records, parcel maps, and overlaid them onto the GIS system. And I'm going to totally talk about that in a different video because that's a whole hour-long talk itself. But the GIS system can either be one system within, like there's a county that I know that has a GIS system at the assessors, plus they have a whole nother GIS system that just is incredible. Which one did you find? I don't know why they have two of them. One's a partial, one's a full blown. So you just never know. You make sure you ask, where you're finding your information if you're in there looking, but get to know your GIS system. That's looking at things on Google Earth. The GIS brings it to life. All right, so I'm going to say that that's going to be a take on the end of slot 2, part 2, the basics. If you've made it this far, I would greatly appreciate if you would do a few things for me, because it is my dream to teach online. And I could talk all day. Good Lord, if you've made it this far, you've already watched me talk for another 2 hours this morning. How far am I into this? I don't really know. Okay, so 1, you could hit the like button. Please make a comment, whether it's just a thumbs up or, you could comment about my lovely Wrangler cowgirl boot blanket. I don't care what you comment about, because I don't count, because I'm trying to get monetized on Facebook and it counts comments, likes, shares. It doesn't really care how many followers I have, but hit the follow button and then you'll see, like I'll come up in your feed, and then you could share it with your friends and say, hey, you want to check out the local tax sale with me? Let's get rich together. Peace out. There's enough land for all of us.